You are standing in the garden at the end of August, with a pitchfork in your hand and sweat stinging your eyes. You have spent the entire summer tending to that neat little row of green potato plants. You watered them when the ground got dry, and you watched them flower with that quiet pride every gardener knows. Now the tops have died back, just like the books said they would, and it is time for the big harvest. You drive the tines of the fork into the hard-packed soil and heave backward with all your weight. You turn over a heavy clod of dirt expecting a cascade of golden brown russets to tumble out. But instead, you find exactly 3 potatoes. One is decent-sized, one is the size of a golf ball, and the third one has a chunk taken out of it by your own pitchfork. You spend the next 20 minutes on your hands and knees digging through compacted dirt. You are pulling out disappointing little spuds that barely fill the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket. You look at that meager pile and calculate the hours of watering, weeding, and back-breaking labor you put in over the last 100 days. It feels like a terrible trade. It makes you feel like maybe you just do not have the right soil for this. You think your dirt is too heavy, your climate is wrong, or maybe you just did not buy the right kind of expensive fertilizer. I want you to drop the pitchfork and stop blaming yourself right now. You did not fail. The potatoes did not fail. The modern method of growing them failed you. We have been taught for generations that potatoes belong buried deep in the earth. We are told you have to trench them, bury them in hard dirt, and then break your back digging them out at the end of the season. We treat the potato like a root that needs to be suffocated in heavy soil. But that is not how this plant evolved to grow, and it is certainly not how the people who domesticated it grew it. What you experienced in your garden is the result of industrial agriculture trickling down to the backyard. The commercial farmers use massive diesel tractors to rip up the earth and harvest their crop. Since you do not have a tractor, you are left doing the work of a machine with your bare hands. It is exhausting, it is inefficient, and it actively works against the biology of the plant itself. The truth is that there is a better way. A way that requires 0 digging, 0 heavy tools, and produces 3 times the yield in the exact same footprint. It is an ancient method. The indigenous people of the Andes Mountains were growing thousands of varieties of potatoes over 2,000 years ago in some of the harshest conditions on the planet. They did not have steel plows or chemical fertilizers, yet they produced massive, calorie-dense harvests that sustained entire civilizations. They understood something fundamental about the potato that we have completely forgotten. The reason you have never been taught this method is honestly kind of annoying. It works too well. It costs absolutely nothing, and it requires 0 specialized tools for anyone to sell to you. It cuts the fertilizer companies and the garden center gimmicks completely out of the equation. Why would anyone tell you how to grow 50 pounds of potatoes on a pile of yard waste when they can sell you everything? They want to sell you expensive seed potatoes, specialized soils, and heavy digging forks. So let me just show you how to build this system. It is going to change the way you look at your garden forever. To understand why this ancient method explodes your yield, you have to understand what a potato actually is. When you plant a seed potato, you are not really planting a root. A potato is a modified stem called a tuber. Its entire biological purpose is to swell up and store energy. When you bury that tuber under 6 inches of heavy, compacted topsoil, you are putting it in a prison. The soil is heavy, it is dense, and it is hard to push through. The plant has to expend an enormous amount of its precious energy just to expand. Every ounce of effort that potato spends fighting the hard clay is an ounce of energy it cannot use to grow bigger. It is like trying to blow up a balloon inside a wooden box. It will only get so big before it hits the walls and stops. But when you remove the friction, when you give that tuber a loose, airy, nutrient-rich environment that yields to the slightest pressure, the plant goes crazy. It does not have to fight to expand. It just swells and multiplies. And the best part is that we are going to create this perfect environment without ever turning a single shovelful of dirt. We are going to build the soil up, not dig it down. We are going to use a variation of a deeply traditional method. Some call it the lazy bed, but there is absolutely nothing lazy about the results. You are going to replicate the soft, loamy, incredibly fertile forest floor that these plants originally thrived in. To do this, you only need two things. You need your seed potatoes, and you need a massive amount of organic matter. This is where you get to clean up your yard and grow food at the same time. You want old straw, autumn leaves, grass clippings, or even slightly aged compost. If you have a neighbor who bags up their leaves and puts them on the curb, go grab them. That is free energy sitting on the sidewalk. You want materials that are carbon-heavy and light in texture. If you buy a bale of straw, make sure it is not sprayed with persistent herbicides. But honestly, the free stuff from your own property is always the safest and the best. You are going to gather all of this material and bring it to whatever patch of ground you want to turn into a potato factory. It does not matter if the ground is hard clay, rocky, or even just a patch of grass you want to reclaim. You do not need to till it. You do not need to double dig it. You just need to walk over to it. Let us start the build. Pick a spot in your yard that gets good, solid sunlight. Potatoes need the sun to generate the energy they are going to store in the ground. Do not put this in the deep shade of a tree. Once you have your spot, you are going to lay down a thick layer of cardboard right over the grass. Make sure you remove any plastic tape or staples from the boxes first. Overlap the edges of the cardboard so no sunlight can get through to the ground below. This is your weed barrier. It is going to smother the grass and slowly decompose, feeding the earthworms that will eventually come up to work your soil. Once the cardboard is down, take a hose and soak it completely. You want it wet, heavy, and clinging to the contours of the earth. This moisture is the foundation of the microclimate. Now, you take a thin layer of compost or rich soil, maybe just an inch or two deep, and spread it out over the wet cardboard. You do not need wheelbarrows full of the stuff. You just need enough to give the seed potatoes something to rest on and root into. This little bit of soil acts like a sponge, holding moisture right at the base where the first roots will form. Now you take your seed potatoes. If they are large, you can cut them into pieces, making sure each piece has at least 2 good eyes on it. Let those cut pieces sit out for a day so the cut edge can heal over and scab. This prevents them from rotting when you put them out in the yard. Once they are ready, you do not bury them. You simply place them right on top of that thin layer of soil you spread over the cardboard. Space them about 12 inches apart in a grid pattern. You are just laying them out like you are arranging stones on a patio. It feels entirely wrong the first time you do this. Everything in your gardening brain screams that you need to bury them deep. You will look at them sitting there exposed to the open air, and you will worry that the birds are going to get them or that they will just dry up and die. But you have to trust the process. You are setting up the perfect staging ground. The potatoes are resting on a moisture-retaining layer. They have unimpeded access to the earth below as the cardboard breaks down, and right now, they have absolutely zero pressure on them. They are entirely free to expand. Now comes the magic. You take that massive pile of organic matter you collected, the straw, the shredded leaves, the dry grass clippings, and you start burying the potatoes. But you are not burying them in dirt. You are burying them in a fluffy, breathable blanket of carbon. You want to pile this material directly over the potatoes until it is at least 12 to 18 inches deep. Yes, you heard that right. Over a foot of loose material right on top of them. You are building a giant, airy mound. When you are done, your garden will not look like a traditional garden at all. It will look like you just raked all the yard waste into a tidy, deep rectangle. It will look completely wild. But beneath that thick layer of straw and leaves, an incredible biological reaction is about to begin. The thick blanket acts as a supreme insulator. It blocks the harsh sun from baking the ground, keeping the environment underneath dark, cool, and uniformly moist. It is the exact microclimate a potato tuber dreams of. And because the material is loose, oxygen flows freely down to the soil level, fueling the microbes and keeping the potatoes from rotting. Let us talk about what happens when it rains. In a traditional dirt trench, heavy rain turns the soil to mud, drowning the roots and encouraging fungal diseases like blight. The soil compacts even further, turning into a hard brick when the sun comes out and bakes it dry. But in your new system, the rain hits that thick layer of organic mulch and shatters. It gently trickles down through the straw, moisturizing the entire stack evenly without ever pooling. The excess water simply runs off the cardboard or seeps slowly into the earth below. Your potatoes are suspended in a perfectly damp, perfectly aerated matrix. It is like they are growing in a high-tech hydroponic sponge, except you built it for free with dead leaves. As the weeks pass, you will start to see the green shoots pushing their way up through the foot of straw. They do not have to struggle to break the surface crust of heavy dirt. They just effortlessly weave their way through the loose stems and pop out into the sunlight. When you see those strong, vibrant green leaves unfurl above the mulch, you will know the engine is running. The plant is now gathering solar energy and sending it directly down to the tubers. As the green stems grow taller, they do something incredible. In a standard shallow trench, the potatoes only form in one tight cluster at the very bottom of the stem. But when the stem is buried deep in a loose, dark environment, the plant thinks it is still underground. It starts sending out lateral roots all the way up the buried portion of the stem. And at the end of every single one of those lateral roots, a new potato forms. You are not just growing a single flat layer of spuds anymore. You are growing a three-dimensional tower of food. The plant utilizes every inch of that 12-inch deep mulch layer. The tubers expand effortlessly into the loose straw, growing perfectly round, massive, and completely unblemished by rocks or hard clay. Because they never touch wet soil directly, the skins stay pristine. They do not get scab diseases, and they do not rot in the mud. You are creating a multi-tiered factory of calorie production right in your backyard. You are mimicking the ancient vertical hilling techniques without ever lifting a shovel. And here is where you reclaim your summer. Think about what a traditional potato bed requires in July. You are out there with a hoe, desperately trying to chop down the weeds that are competing for nutrients. You are dragging a hose around every 2 days because the bare dirt evaporates moisture incredibly fast under the summer sun. You are constantly hilling up heavy dirt around the base of the plants, sweating and straining. In this ancient method, you do absolutely none of that. That foot-deep layer of straw and leaves completely smothers any weed seeds trying to sprout from below. No sunlight can reach the soil, which means zero weeds. You just completely eliminated the most hated chore in gardening. As for watering, the mulch acts like a moisture trap. It prevents evaporation so effectively that you only need to water a fraction as often as a traditional bed. If you stick your hand deep into the straw, you will feel it. The top inch might be crispy, but down near the potatoes, it is cool, damp, and perfectly conditioned. You have taken yourself out of the role of a laborer and put yourself in the role of an observer. The system is doing the work for you. It is self-regulating, self-insulating, and incredibly efficient. As the summer rolls on and the heat peaks in August, you will notice something else that traditional gardeners struggle with. You will see their potato plants yellowing early, stressed out by the wild swings between heavy rain and baking drought. But your plants, deeply insulated in their carbon blanket, will remain a vibrant, dark green for much longer. They are experiencing a perfectly stable environment, which means they never stop photosynthesizing and pumping sugars down into the tubers. You're giving them the luxury of time, allowing them to reach their absolute maximum genetic potential without interruption. Eventually, the day will come when the plants begin to flower. You will see those delicate little white or purple blossoms appearing above the straw, nodding in the late summer breeze. This is the signal that the factory below is running at maximum capacity, swelling those tubers with dense, storable carbohydrates. When you see those flowers, you might be tempted to reach down into the straw and pull out a few new potatoes for dinner. You can absolutely do this without hurting the plant. You just slip your hand in, feel around for a small one, and snap it off. But the real magic happens at the very end of the season, when the green tops finally begin to yellow, droop, and die back naturally. In a conventional garden, this is the moment of dread. The day you have to go find the heavy boots, the pitchfork, and a bottle of ibuprofen. You stare at the hard, baked earth and know you have hours of back-breaking labor ahead of you just to find your food. But with the ancient mulch method, harvest day is the best day of the entire year. You don't need a single tool, not even a hand trowel. You simply walk out to your garden bed, grab the dead stem of the potato plant, and give it a gentle, steady pull. Because there is no heavy dirt holding the plant hostage, the entire root structure yields effortlessly, sliding right out of the loose straw. As you pull, it looks like a magic trick. A massive cluster of huge, perfectly formed potatoes comes up with the stem, dangling in the open air. You just shake it gently, and the dry leaves and straw fall away, leaving you holding a bouquet of pure, pristine food. The first time you do this, you will probably just stand there staring at it in disbelief. You will look at the size of these potatoes and realize they are twice as big as anything you have ever dug out of hard clay. Their skins are flawless, totally free of the deep gouges, wireworm holes, and rough, scabby patches that plague dirt-grown tubers. Because they grew in a soft, yielding matrix, they are perfectly smooth and uniform, exactly like the expensive premium ones at the grocery store. But these cost you nothing, and you grew them with zero digging. And that is just the beginning of the harvest. Once you pull the main stem, you get to hunt for the stragglers. You simply drop to your knees and push the straw aside with your bare hands, feeling around in the cool, loose material. You will call your kids or your grandkids over to help because it is so easy and so much fun. They can dig through the clean straw with their bare hands without any fear of getting cut by a sharp garden tool. It becomes a treasure hunt instead of an exhausting backyard chore. You will sweep your hands back and forth, uncovering massive, heavy potatoes that formed on the outer edges of the lateral roots. Every time you think you have found them all, you push aside another handful of straw and find 3 more hiding in the dark. You will fill your 5-gallon bucket in a matter of minutes, and then you will have to go back to the garage to get another one. A single seed potato grown this way can easily yield 15 to 20 large, calorie-dense tubers. When you multiply that across a simple 4-by-8-foot bed, you are looking at a mountain of food. You are suddenly looking at 50, 60, or even 80 pounds of food from a tiny space. You have literally tripled the yield of a standard dirt trench, and you did it in the exact same footprint without ever turning a shovel full of soil. You will sit there surrounded by buckets of beautiful food, and the sheer efficiency of it will wash over you. You will think about the fact that you generated this massive amount of survival calories using nothing but yard waste and a recycled cardboard box. This is the exact kind of security and independence that our ancestors relied on. You are completely decoupled from the fragile industrial supply chain. You didn't buy bags of expensive potting mix. You didn't buy liquid synthetic fertilizers, and you didn't burn a drop of gasoline in a tiller. Now that you have your harvest, you have to treat it right so it lasts you entirely through the long, cold winter. Because you didn't dig them out of wet mud, your potatoes are already relatively clean, requiring only a gentle brush with your hand. Never wash your potatoes before you store them, as the water will destroy their protective skin and invite rot immediately. You want to lay them out in a single layer in a dark, cool, well-ventilated space, like a garage or a covered porch, for about 2 weeks. You also need to make absolutely sure they are kept completely out of direct sunlight during this curing phase. If potatoes are exposed to the sun, their skins will start to turn green, which is a sign they are producing solanine, a natural bitter compound you do not want to eat. Keep them in the shadows, let the air circulate around them, and let nature do the preserving. This is the curing process, and it is absolutely vital for off-grid food storage. During these 2 weeks, the skins will toughen up and thicken, turning into a leathery armor that locks the moisture inside the potato. Any minor nicks or scratches they got during the harvest will naturally scab over and heal themselves, completely sealing out airborne bacteria. Once they are cured, you can pack them away in burlap sacks, cardboard boxes, or wooden crates stored in a root cellar or a cool basement. If you keep them in the dark between 35 and 40 degrees, they will stay perfectly firm and sweet all the way until next spring. But the payoff of this method doesn't stop with the food you just put in your pantry. You need to walk back out to the garden and look at the space where your potato tower just stood. The pile of straw and leaves has shrunk down to about half its original height over the course of the summer. You pull back the top layer of dry mulch, and you look at what has happened underneath where the cardboard used to be. The cardboard is completely gone, eaten entirely by the earthworms and the soil microbes that naturally moved in. Where there used to be hard, compacted clay or struggling lawn grass, there is now a thick layer of incredibly rich, black, crumbly topsoil. The continuous moisture, the decaying carbon, and the lack of human interference have created the perfect environment for natural soil building. You didn't just grow 50 pounds of potatoes. You also composted a massive pile of yard waste right in place. You have permanently improved the fertility and the structure of your land without doing any heavy lifting. You built wealth right into the ground. Next spring, you won't even need to lay down cardboard in this spot. You can just push the remaining straw aside and plant your tomatoes, your peppers, or your squash directly into this newly created, deeply fertile loam. You have turned a single growing season into a cascading benefit that will reward you for years to come. This is how nature actually works when you stop fighting it and start aligning yourself with its ancient biological rules. It wants to grow, it wants to multiply, and it wants to build soil. It just needs you to get out of the way. We have spent a century being sold a lie that gardening has to be a constant, exhausting battle against the earth. The corporations want you to believe that the soil is dead, the pests are invincible, and you are entirely dependent on their products to survive. They sell you the rototiller to destroy the soil structure, the chemical fertilizer to temporarily mask the damage, and the pesticide to kill the resulting imbalance. It is a brilliant business model, but it is a terrible way to live. And it is a terrible way to grow your food. When you embrace these forgotten, low-effort, high-yield methods, you are stepping out of their economic loop entirely. You can walk past the produce aisle at the grocery store, look at the sky-high prices, and just smile, knowing you have months of superior food sitting in your dark pantry. You are reclaiming your time, your energy, and your self-reliance. You are looking at the fallen leaves in your yard not as a nuisance to be bagged and dragged to the curb, but as stored solar energy waiting to be deployed. You realize that true wealth isn't the money you spend at the garden center. It is the knowledge you hold in your hands. It is the quiet confidence that you can feed your family no matter what happens to the world outside your fence. I want you to try this method this coming spring. Don't worry about ripping up your entire lawn or building expensive raised wooden beds. Just find a sunny patch of grass, lay down some cardboard, toss down your seed potatoes, and bury them in the leaves you saved from the fall. Let the system do the heavy lifting while you sit back and watch the biological engine run on its own. When harvest time comes and you pull that first massive plant from the loose straw with your bare hands, your entire paradigm will shift. You will look at the heavy digging fork leaning against the shed, and you will realize you are never going to need it again. You will understand why the ancient peoples of the Andes thrived in such harsh conditions, and you will bring that exact same resilience into your own backyard. You have the fuel, you have the knowledge, and the earth is waiting for you to make the connection. If this story changes the way you look at your garden and the forgotten methods of the past, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the practical history and survival wisdom that they have tried to bury. Start harvesting your own future. The next treasure of forgotten knowledge will be revealed soon.